I'm Scott Anthony. I am the author of Smoke, Confessions of a Cuban Cigar Smuggler, and I am Chattin with Staxx.
Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Scott Anthony.
If you want to be a tell them where I am, come and get me. I took my mother. In Illinois, you need an FOID card to own a firearm. I took my mother that same day to a currency exchange to fill out the form. A couple weeks later, that FOID card came. My mother could own a gun, and I went right to the store and I got an Ithaca pump shotgun, and I slept on the floor in my dining room between the front door and the back door for more than a year.
Wow.
I was street, and I got to the suburb, and all it did, it polished me, educated me, gave me some humanity. I did evolve because I met these 10-year-old girls, and I liked their sister, so I went over to their house to see if the sister was home, and these two little innocent girls invited me in. They're like, come on in, she'll be home soon. I'm lying. I pretended I was there for her brother. So, no, he's not here, but and all I cared about was the sister. But yeah, I was 13 or 14, and these girls were like 8, 9, 10, something like that. And I sat there talking to them and coexisting, and I realized I was an idiot. At that moment, they were talking about geography and history, and they were playing backgammon, and I was just full ape. I was just a monkey. And I left that house, and it was a revelation. I felt bad. I said to myself, you are an idiot. You want to be stupid your whole life? You go to school, and the next day or 2 days later, whatever it was, I had to go to juvenile court, and they locked me up, and they forced me to go to school. And I worked a deal that day. It's a long story, but got my ass back in school, developed myself, and moved forward. The suburbs helped me go many steps forward. But then when I graduated, I felt insecure. I don't know what people are going to say about this. I haven't talked about this ever, but I felt insecure. I didn't feel like these suburban hush puppies and I were the same breed. I just felt they were better. They knew more. I didn't think I could go to college. I had a scholarship offer to Northwestern University for wrestling, and I thought there's no way I could make it. And I graduated from school, and right away I was dealing and deep into the streets, and it just grew, and it felt like home. This is, any guy who's a street guy knows this. When you're dealing drugs, the money's coming in, the girls are just flocking. It's just everything changes.
You think it's never going to end, right?
It never going to end, and it feels beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the closest that a nobody can get to being a celebrity. It really is. I went to every VIP section of every nightclub, and here's something for you. In the 1980s, I was good friends with Stephen Bauer, AKA Manny from Scarface. So I had an exceptional existence. I had a DeLorean at 20 years old, maybe 19, I had a DeLorean. I bought my first house at 19 years old, cash.
Wow.
I had 1984, there was an armored car robbery on Monday, and Monday, me and another guy went into the dealership and bought brand new cars. I bought a brand new 1984 Corvette with the big fat wheels and just a special car. One of the stupidest things I ever did in my life. Just happens the armored car robbery happens the same day two known scumbags walk into the Chevy dealer and buy $35,000 cars in cash.
Tell me about the armored car robbery. How did that transpire?
The armored car robbery happened because, like I said, I was connected with several of the guys from the largest white street gang that ever existed in Chicago, the TJOs, which stands for affectionately the Thorndale Jagoffs. They were another level of street guy. It was mini mafia slash street scumbags. You know, it was there was some organization to it. They were very respected. And by the time the armored car happened, they were all but defunct. The leader was in prison for life. The co-leader had just gotten out. They had been in for a long time for murder. And I was hanging out with them and teaching them what my craft. They were very violent. One of them was the guy who told me, just put the pillow over his head and kill him.
Yeah.
And I'd known them since I was kids, so I was coaching them. And then this opportunity came up. We had some inside information on the armored car. And the day I showed up and I listened to their planning, I said, no way. I'm not. Their plan was basically out in the street, a 3 or 4 man job with, we had fully automatic weapons, and anybody comes out, anybody moves, you just mow them all down. And I got up and I walked out. And so they came looking for me and said, well, what's wrong with you, Scott? And I said, everything is wrong. If I'm not planning it, we're not doing it. Fast forward, I planned it. And there wasn't one shot. There wasn't one problem. And what I heard is $400,000 of 1984 money was taken out of an armored car with 3 guys. 3 months after that, that was July, August. That was July, August, October. 2 of those same guys and a 3rd guy. I didn't go. We were planning another robbery, but I couldn't work with these guys. These guys were 1970 criminals, all or nothing, too intense. Just everything was intense and violent and stupid. And anyway, very famous. You can find it all over the news. A shooting at Carson's Ribs in Chicago. And I was supposed to be there. And I didn't go because just things were going to go wrong. One of the guys, they had a shootout with the police that day, and they all got shot. And the 3rd wheel that was there was originally with us on the planning of the armored car, and he put the finger on me for the armored car. He didn't put the finger on them because their reach in prison was so powerful and so long, he would have been dead the same day. But he put it on me. And so I got picked up on the armored car, and I was questioned on it. And then they came back to me 5 years later, and I remember the agent's face when he came to talk to me about the armored car. Then he looked at it, he goes, forget about it. And I said, forget about what? He goes, I came here to talk to you about this armored car robbery, but the statute of limitations expired at 5 years. So statute of limitations expired on that. But that's what was ruined my life, basically. It was October of 1984, and these guys had a shootout with the police, and that guy told everything, but that wasn't the worst of it. Both of the guns that they had led back to me, and one of them was an Uzi fully automatic. So that changed my life for a short period, but when you're young, that was yesterday, man. I'm going for tomorrow. Tomorrow's a whole new day. I got sharper, I got tighter, I got more sophisticated. I abandoned my house, basically never went back to my house, and started a whole new life in a whole nother part of the city, and did that until 1987. I was a big roller player in Chicago, and I gave up the street gang stuff. Now, I still knew all of them. The branches, I created 2 branches. Those are corners, and normally a game room or something stupid that you hang out on a corner and fight with people you don't even know over nothing. I gave that up, but many of the guys I left there were still like my peewees and my generation. So I still had street power. Like if I needed money collected from somebody, it wasn't a problem. If I needed something taken care of in prison, it was basically just a whisper. So I was a force to be reckoned with. But I was 1984. I was only 20 years old.
And by this time, did you do any time in prison?
I had been in and out of jail, so county jail, in and out, but I hadn't been in prison yet, and I was pretty good of being elusive. It's a cat and mouse game, and a lot of mice don't get caught. You've got to be. It's an extra level of stress to bulletproof yourself. You've got to be very shrewd. You got to know how. You can't trust anybody on the street. I don't care what anybody says. Some people on some video I did recently, I don't know who his friends were. I know who my friends are, and I know all of my friends could be trusted with some stuff, but not everybody can be trusted with everything. And you're a target. You can't tell anybody where you hid your money. You can't tell anybody you have money. It's a bunch of Vikings.
Even your friends will take from you, right?
Of course, man. I got a couple friends. I went to kindergarten with them. One of them I refuse to even say in my book. He's always called Trusty. I love this guy like my own family. I knew him since we were 5 years old. My mother and his mother knew each other, and we were like family. And he sold me out for almost nothing. And it's I don't care what other people say. This is my version. Yeah, there's some really down people out there that are some badasses, and their crew is as tight as can be. God bless you. And normally in every crew, and I'll use Whitey Bulger as an example. Whitey was the brains. Whitey was maybe the only guy there that was smart, and he used everybody. And I used people. I didn't abuse people, but I used people for what I saw valuable in them. Yeah. If a guy was violent, well, I knew what to use him for. If a person knew another contact and you could get to someone else through them, you take advantage of these situations. But I never hung anybody out to dry for my own benefit. And I got turned on. I got snitched on by a handful of people and even family. And there is no loyalty when it comes to the amount of time that the feds give out. I'll tell you that.
Is that how you did prison time? Your first time really doing time, was that in the feds?
No. I got myself. The reason I'm not bitter with any of these people, even people that might have used me as bait, we all knew what we were into. It's a whole storm of problems. It's all bad. From the top to the bottom, nothing good comes out of it. Even selling drugs to people, you're fucking up their lives for a profit. So there's nothing. It's all fucking bad. That's why when I walked away, I said I'm done. So I used to go down to Florida to get my stuff because better price, better quality, no people in the middle. And I was all about business. I'm going to the source. I'm not getting middled. And it was always moving up. I was 23 years old. I was driving down the highway coming back from Florida. They pulled us over. I ran, and God's hand on my shoulder. I ran and I got away, and I became a fugitive. And it was very hard. One of the hardest things that anybody could possibly imagine. To give up. All I knew, basically, were my Chicago streets. I knew my life, what I did, what I knew. My world was really small when.
Yeah, you never really branched out of that Chicago area, right?
My life. That's sure. I went on a white water rafting trip here. We would go to the woods in northern Wisconsin. I went to Cancun. Those were the couple places. I went to Jamaica. But my world was there, and I was safe in my world. I knew the cops, knew the detectives. We knew everybody in every house in our neighborhood. We were kind of fortified in a way. And recently, one of my childhood friends, I went to visit him, and he said, "You guys basically own this fucking area." We owned it. We had everything right. I had cops that would call me and give me information. I had cops I grew up with. They were now cops. Of course, there's some loyalty. I'm their fucking friend. So when I got pulled over in Georgia, I had the fear of God in me because Chicago prison system, it would have been like a class reunion to me. But Georgia, I don't know anything about Georgia except movies, chain gangs and the Southern accent, and you're an outsider and you're fucked. So I ran extra hard to get away that night. And my friend in the car, he got arrested and charged. And 3 days, I got back to Chicago. When I finally figured out my situation, I was alone. I cut off 98% of my ties. That's it. I didn't look for anybody because I was vulnerable. Any moment, I could have been snatched up, and I was like, it was like I was dumped in water, and I didn't know which way was up. I was looking for the bubbles. I was just 23, man. I was a baby. Couldn't imagine my 23-year-old son facing what I was facing. And I got back to Chicago and started trying to collect. And when people know you're going to do time, it's like you have AIDS. They want to stay away from you. And if they owe you money, oh man, they just hope you die or forget about it. And so I was suffering, trying to collect, and I started getting a little more violent, started robbing more people, started thinking, fuck, if I got a good run, I need money, because when you're living that street life, your lifestyle is your money. What you see is what you got. It's not like these guys have 401ks and special investments. It's what you see. Expensive clothes, expensive cars, expensive dinners. I had a fucking Rolex when I was 18 years old. And a president, a gold Rolex. And so I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And my friend and my girlfriend's mother's boyfriend, this guy, Leno, said, Scott, you got to run away to Mexico. Mexico? Well, I'm thinking of tumbleweed blowing in the dusty street, and like the coolest guy in town, he wears a mariachi uniform and a sombrero.
Did you know Spanish?
No, not one word. Now I'm fluent. And off 2 months later, I'm off to Mexico, and I am lost. And fast forward, I'm back in Chicago because nobody's paying me. The money isn't coming in, and I'm coming apart at the seams. I'm just what the fuck am I going to do with my life? I came back, and now I was another animal. I know I'm a fugitive. I've accepted it. I'm now more violent, more aggressive, and a little bit bitter and angry.
So you went down to Mexico and then came back?
I went down to Mexico for 4 or 5 months. I had somebody bring my car down. I was hooked up with these people living at their house. My girlfriend came down. I was trying to figure out what the fuck am I going to do? It was hard. I can smile and laugh now, but I'm telling you, anybody who's done it, they're the only people who can understand the pain and suffering. And then eventually I met this guy down there who became another angel in my life, Tino. And Tino said to me, bro, you got to go home and collect, because they're not going to pay you over the phone. When they see you in front of them, things change. And he was a criminal, and his family was deep into the cartel world. And he coached me on how to get back home and through the border, and I did it. And I went home, and then he came over to the U.S., and then him and I were like this for a long time. And I was collecting and doing jobs and collecting and doing jobs. And God help anybody who was in my path. This guy interviewed me in a podcast I did, 10 Toes in Miami a couple months ago. And Jay interviewed me, and he was a big pill dealer. And he said, so if I would have met you, you would have had a target on you this big. And there's no way I got almost everybody I set my sights on, because I can speak well, I'm charismatic, I fly right under the radar, and I'll be your friend and I'll buy your product. So I was hitting people that were my source. Then I kept buying it from them after, because They don't think this great customer. I had a good business.
Make them feel
I
comfortable, right?
That's it. That's it. And being a fugitive was so hard, but I reinvented myself in Chicago. I went to a whole new neighborhood. I got all new friends. I started a construction business, and I just reinvented myself. And then one day, I found out my friend he got out on bond out of Georgia. So I found out who his attorney was, and I didn't want to contact him because I didn't want to create any heat for him or me. He's my childhood friend since 4 years old. David Bonomo, you wouldn't give 2 cents if you saw him on the street, but that guy could take a beating and a torture, and he never told anything to the cops in his life. He didn't look like Thor, but that's the real Thor. And so I called his lawyer, and I told his lawyer, I said, look, hypothetically, if you were talking to the guy in the car with David Scott, what would you say to him? He said, if I was hypothetically talking to Scott, I'd tell him, if Scott could stay out of harm's way for 5 years, David's case, the case for both of them will be over, because they got 5 years to charge both of them. But if they catch Scott before the 5 years, they're going to charge both of them and make them fight against each other. And so I understood that, and I hit the road. Things got hot for me. A couple months later, I hit the road, and they caught me 5 years and 1 day after.